Welcome to Mind Your Abundance podcast, where we explore the extraordinary stories of individuals who have embarked on their journey of self-discovery, healing, and transformation. I'm your host, Ruby, and I'm excited to take you on the inspiring journey today. She also shared a challenging time of her postnatal depression, how she dealt with it and overcome it. And in this episode, she also shared her manifestation trick you can implement it today and to find the result very quick. I really think this episode will be really helpful for you. Let's get started.
Hi, Alison. Thank you so much for joining with us today. And can you give us a story about how you get started your spiritual journey and anything you would like to get started with our audience?
Oh, that sounds really interesting. It's lovely to meet you, Ruby. As you said, my name's Alison. It's Alison Eades, and I'm from Brisbane in Australia, which is a really lovely place to live. And I started my spiritual journey a really long time ago. I can always remember having some connection, I suppose, to the otherworldly. And I grew up with my mum reading us excerpts from Lobsang Rampa books, all about astral traveling and things like that. And her also giving us, telling us about her experiences when people close to her have passed away. So it's always been in my sphere of my life, like it's never not been there. But I guess the big, I had a couple of deep dives, I suppose. Like it's not been one thing, it just seemed to get deeper and deeper. And as I was a teenager, I used to do really weird things. Like I had a friend and we used to try and make the carpet hairs move kinesthetically. Like, it was just a really weird sort of thing to do. But as I grew up and, life takes a hold, you sort of realize that life isn't what you think it's going to be. And I guess it was through the hardships in life that made me realize that there was something else. Like when it actually came into my awareness that there had to be something else. So I've actually got a degree in information technology. So I was a project manager in the IT industry.
Nice.
Straight out of school. And
I'm a programmer, so it's kind of similar kind of thing.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that kind of interesting? Because that requires a very logical side of the brain, basically more emotional kind of side. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's very different.
Yes, very different. And a lot of people say that to me as well, because I also, I draw and paint, and I used to have a wedding dress business as well.
Oh, nice.
So, there's this very lovely merging and integration in my life between the left hand and the right hand side of the brain, which has just happened. I haven't planned it that way.
I like it. So I love it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And so there's been a number of things that have happened in my life that have sort of launched me deeper and deeper and deeper into the spiritual journey. And I used to get migraines. They started when I was about 13 years old, and I started my first job in telecom, which is a Telstra company here, telecommunications company here, a long, long time ago, back in the 80s, right? This was out of uni, and I had a migraine one day, and this man, who I didn't know, like I'd been working there a couple of months, I was the only female in that team. One of my managers was a female, but that was it. Like everybody else was a male. Anyway, this guy sat me in the middle of the office. It was so embarrassing. I had this migraine and it was debilitating. He sat me on this chair and he did this thing called Reiki.
Yes.
Like this was back in the 80s. But back in those days, Reiki, no one knew what it was.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there and I could feel this migraine literally being pulled out of my head. It was just amazing. And my boss, who was the only female, she sent me, because of my migraine, she literally sent me to people like acupuncturists and naturopaths.
Can we pause one second? Can I do a Reiki on you, or what you actually respond?
He didn't
Wow.
ask.
He
He just sat me in the middle. He just
Oh.
said, come over here. I've got something I can do to help.
Oh, that's very interesting.
It was
Go ahead.
really, really amazing. And back in the 80s in Australia, like Australia just isn't the place where we do that sort of thing. You know, it's a very harsh sort of country. It is now, but it wasn't back then, a long time ago. And so anyway, that was sort of my introduction from as a client perspective. So I started seeing acupuncturists, chiropractors, naturopaths to try and sort out my migraines so that I could get to work every day. That's sort of how it really started right back in the day. And then if we sort of fast forward a few years from that, I then found myself in Melbourne, and I just wasn't happy. Like, I was really successful in my job. And I had people like IBM ringing me up and saying, Alison, we want you to come and work for us. But I just couldn't do it. I just, like, something inside of me was broken, right? And I started to recognize, well, I felt like there was something inside of me that was broken. And so I started searching for meditation. Like, I wanted to know how to meditate. A friend of mine had given me a book, which was like The Art of Living and Dying by, I can't remember one of the lamas, you know, the Buddhist teachers. So I read that, and I started studying different religions because I just felt like there was a part of me that I wasn't acknowledging. And I grew up a Catholic, right? So I grew up sort of with that religion, and I really feel like Jesus has walked with me the whole way. Now that I now that I look back on that journey, I really feel like I've had this beautiful spirit of Jesus walking beside me and guiding me, even though I didn't realize it. And so that was when I really sort of, you know, I wasn't happy in my life, and I really felt like I needed to find something deeper. And so that was really the start of my journey. And
do you hesitate? Do you hesitate at all, or you still kind of doing both at the same time? Like, you still chasing your career, or you are dive right into the spiritual thing?
So this was going back into the late 80s, early 90s, what I'm talking about now. Maybe the late 90s. So this was 30 years ago. I guess I've always sort of tried to follow my heart, and I don't know even really how to describe that back in the early days. So I'll give you a little bit of an example, a bit of a snippet, right? And I don't think I've ever shared this with anyone. So I got married when I was 26, and the time where I really felt the saddest in my life was when that marriage dissolved. And what I ended up doing, I'm actually English. So even though I live in Australia, I was born in England. What I ended up doing was going back to England, like with a backpack on my back. And I was like 20-something, 28, 29, 30 years old. I can't remember the exact age. And by that stage, I had found sailing. So I had done sailing on a yacht, you know, out in the ocean, at one with nature. Just, it's really my happy place. I just love, love being on the boat. Love being on the water. And so I'd done a heap of sailing, and I went over to England, and I took my brother with me, and I met all these people. Like, I had my backpack on, but I had been doing some sailing in England, but I met all these women, and I went with very little money. And I got there, and I wanted to get my yacht masters, which is a qualification. But I met all these women, and they were all saying to me, wow, you're such an inspiration. And I couldn't figure out why. Because back in those days, women didn't travel alone. You know, women didn't have a marriage, like a hugely successful career, and then a marriage separation, and then go off traveling to find themselves. It just didn't happen.
You just follow your heart, whatever the kind of the guidance bring you, you just go for it, huh? So that is very inspiring, because I take a lot of courage to do those kind of things, though.
Yeah, well, that was just how I was. That was just what I did, right? So I'm finding myself in England with all these women wanting to talk to me about, how did I do this? So, you know, I just started talking to people, and I did a heap of sailing over there. And so sort of if I go back to so that was like the late 80s, the late 90s. And it was an amazing time. Like I went traveling for about 3 years. And then I ended up in New Zealand. So I was actually on a tall ship.
Oh,
And I was the second in charge on a tall ship. And I just needed to leave that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I still hadn't really got all the answers. And this was in the year 2000. So,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
it's really clear in my mind because it was the year 2000. And so I ended up in New Zealand because this tall ship, its home in summer was New Zealand. So its home port in summer was New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And because it had to get out of the South Pacific for the cyclone season. So it would come to New Zealand over summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to New Zealand purely to get the things that I couldn't put on a plane off the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up living in New Zealand for 20 years.
Wow.
So, or 18 years. So I arrived in New Zealand and ended up getting married and having a child. And then we separated. It was really sad. And that was like the real deep dive, because by that stage I'm going, my life's a complete failure. What do I do now? And so I went into a very deep dive. I had postnatal depression. I had a very sick son. He was born unwell. And I just, so even though I had been already sort of like studying and following as much as I could, different religions or different parts of religion, different religions that resonated with me, like I had been meditating, I'd been, trying to live an authentic life from my heart, and it just didn't seem to be working. And I just got to this point where I literally hit rock bottom, like you couldn't go any further down. And one day I realized that there was this person who was a big part of my life, who, when I went to see that person, I went from being a happy, bubbly person to being a very down, miserable, upset, and I lost all of my empowerment to that person, right? And so that's when I went, oh my God, there's something wrong here. I really, really need to do something about this. I now had children and I needed to set an example for my kids. So there was a deeper motivation. And I actually went on a weekend healing course. I did a weekend spiritual healing course, an energetic healer. Or
in New Zealand?
Using energy in New Zealand. It was a group. It was a group thing. So I got home. I saw this person who I realized was bringing me down, and I can't give them that responsibility. It was my responsibility. It was my reaction to the way they are, right? And that was a huge light bulb moment that I had that light bulb moment. Like oh wow, these, like, I let people influence the way I feel, right?
Yes.
Huge light bulb moment. And this is back in 2003 maybe. So it's a massive light bulb moment for me, like to actually take responsibility and have the awareness that I allowed someone to change the way I felt about myself and about my life and about the world.
And that is so important, because a lot of time we are blaming outside, like things happen to our life, but we are actually the one can control the from inside to the outside world. So I love you share this part, because the light bulb moment, you realize that you actually have the control for not letting people to dragging you down.
Yes, it was huge, right? It was a big, huge event, like a massive change for me to actually see that. So that, I think that's probably the start of my deeper spiritual practice, because I went to this, my brother and I went to this weekend, energy healing course, not having a clue really, but feeling really attracted to it. Like I looked through back in those days, we had newspapers and there were the little classified columns, the tiny little ads. And I flicked through the newspaper and this little advertisement for the energy healing workshop jumped out of the page, right? And my brother and I both went, yeah, let's do that. So we did it together, right? And So I went there and during the course, the teacher pulled me aside out into a back room where no one could hear us. And she said to me, Alison, you are so gifted with all of this work. I had no clue, right? She said, you're so gifted with all of this work, but you can't do it if you're not grounded. And I had tears in my eyes because I thought I was getting into trouble. And I'm going, I don't even know what you're talking about. So bearing in mind, this was 20 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I went on to I trained with this lady for about 3 years. And she, at that stage, we're about the same age, I think. But at that stage, she'd already been doing this energy healing work. She was a known psychic, a known clairvoyant. You know, she was very, very gifted, but she'd been doing it for 20 years.
Nice.
And I hadn't been. I mean, I'd been dabbling, but I had no idea what I was doing, really. I used to get messages. One day I was getting out of the car. This was before I did any training in this. I was getting out of the car and I had this really clear voice in my head and it said, you're going to lose your sunglasses if you're not careful.
Is that voice sound like you or sound like someone else's voice?
Oh, good question. It doesn't sound like me.
Oh,
it's just like this. It's a crystal clear voice that it's
pop out of your head. Also.
It comes into my head, but it's not like when I'm thinking something, you know, like if I stop now and I go, oh, this is so much fun, this podcast with Ruby, it's coming from a different place in my head, right? But the voice that guides me it comes more from behind my head. It's really quite interesting.
Because I got those messages, sometimes it sound like my voice. And then I was just kind of, this is just something weird pop into my head. And then things actually happen. And I said, no, that's actually, they're trying to tell me a message. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And it's just a very clear, it's a non-attached, sort of non-emotional voice. It's just very like direct, but it's very kind, caring and loving, right? So it's a very interesting voice. Yeah, and it told me that I'd lose my sunglasses and I'm like, yeah, right, you know. Don't take any notice of it. Anyway, we were walking up in the bush in New Zealand alongside this beautiful river, and my children were little and one of my kids fell over and scraped their knee or something, and I had my sunglasses, because it had gotten dark in the bush, I had my sunglasses tucked into my top.
Sure. Oh, okay.
And I bent over to look after my son, and of course my sunglasses fell out and they disappeared, right? When I realized they were gone, we tried to find them and they did, and I did. I lost my sunglasses. So I've had some very, very clear messages like that along the way. So I was already aware that there was something guiding me, right, even before I did that the healing course, although I can't really say that I took any notice of it.
You just kind of felt like that's just some kind of guidance, or you just felt like, oh, it probably just come out randomly, so you didn't take it very seriously in the beginning?
No, I'm Aries, right? So I think I know better. I used to be extremely headstrong and just I always thought I knew better, right? So I'm like, yeah, right, I'm not going to lose my glasses. I'm not going to lock my keys in the car. These are other messages that I've had, you know, you're going to lock the keys in the car. Why am I lock the keys in the car? I'm not even getting out of the car. Oh, I'm going to go do such and such. So I lock the keys in the car, right?
Until now, you still kind of argue or some kind of asking more question about that voice?
Yeah, look, I still think that sometimes the me side of things gets in the way. In fact, I'm constantly having communications and conversations with the voice, and I try to surrender. That's so I'll just tell you a little story. About 3 years ago, I just need to backtrack a little bit. Just after I did all that the healing training, I started doing this spiritual practice with what's called the Oneness University in India, and so it became, because there was a small group of us in New Zealand where I lived. every week I would be doing these meditations, and so it became more formalized, which was a really good thing for me. And so just the teachings were very clear, so they were easy to follow. They're by somebody in India that I trusted, because they were a real life person. And it wasn't sort of like the teachings of someone from many, many years ago that have been diluted through time, right? So, and the teachings are based on the Vedas, right? And so I had been doing that for since 2004, 2005, I started to do this practice. And and I also did a lot of training as well. Like I did a 10-day silent retreat back around about the same time with a Buddha Dharma Lama. So you can see how I just take what.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I have no denomination.
Oh, that's nice though. You are very open with different resources.
I am, and if something resonates to me, or I'm called to do something, I will do it. So I was actually in the middle of doing some of this spiritual healing training, and I said to my teacher, "Oh, look, I'm going to be away for 10 days, so I won't be here. I'll miss 2 weeks of training," because they were every Wednesday or something. And she goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "Look, I have no idea, but I know I'm going to go away for 10 days on a course, right?" And this other lady popped up and she said, "Oh, are you going to do blah, blah, blah?" And I went, "Tell me more about that." And I said, "Yes, that's where I'm going." I had no clue, but I knew I was going to not be there. Like I knew.
That's so coincidence. That is so cool.
Yeah. So I mean, all of this is like part of what you what the podcast is all about manifesting, right? Like it's really about learning to listen to that quiet, beautiful little voice inside of you that guides you, if you let it, to so many tiny, tiny little magical miracles that step by step create this crazy, beautiful, magical life, right? It's starting with the little things, you know, like the fact that I had no idea how I knew this, right? But I knew I was going to go away for 10 days, right? And then this lady mentions this retreat. It was a 10-day silent retreat out in this beautiful place in New Zealand called Wangapeka, which is a Buddhist education center, and it's been, well, back then it had been there for 25 years, so it's probably been there now for 45, 50 years. And the energy when you get there is just so still and divine. Like you get to the gate and it's almost like you're stepping into a completely different place. It was just beautiful.
Wow. Sometimes you go to retreat, they might ask you to be silent for like 1 day or whole week or something, and then you feel a little resistant about those kind of teaching method, those kind of thing, or no?
If it's something that I know I need to do, like I get this absolute feeling, I call it the nod or the pull, right? So whenever I have to do anything, I've learned over the years that I have to wait for the nod, right? And the nod is like, when I get the nod, I get this, it's almost like there's a thing pulling me from my heart, and I really have to do it, because I've learned that if I resist these things,
it just keeps coming back over, probably.
Yeah, it either keeps coming back or whatever it is I've chosen to do instead turns to custard, right? It doesn't work out.
Yes.
So yeah. So I've learned over many, many years of stuffing up and making mistakes that I have to listen. Nice. It comes back to being an Aries and being very stubborn.
I think I'm pretty stubborn sometimes too, so I totally get it.
Yeah. So I think we get stubborn out of fear. Fear controls us, and one of the things that I have learned over the years is to step out of that fear and step into my heart, and that's what I teach. I teach people how to be fully grounded in their bodies and to be fully in their hearts, because that's the gift that I have been given.
How do you particularly teach people fear, how to step out of fear? Because I think that's a big thing.
That's a really hard question to answer, because I have a number of different programs that I use to help people to move through their fears and what I will call their suffering, to move into a place where they can stay in their heart and they can stay and they find peace, right? To try and boil that down, I guess the only real way is through.
Going through.
Yep, you have to go through. And I don't know of any other way. I wish there was, and I say this to my clients, I wish I could just like be the lady at Bewitched, you know, and twiddle my nose or wave a magic wand and turn off their suffering and their struggle so that they could step into this place. But I don't think it's possible. Like I've only met one person in my entire life that has been instantaneously enlightened. And like it went like this. And I've met other people who have become enlightened, but it's been after many years of practice and dedication to that practice. And everyone's practice is different. There is no one practice that gives you this journey to this place through fear. But I think the first thing is to actually acknowledge that you're afraid. Right? That fear is stopping you from moving forward. That's the first thing, because once you know that there is fear there, then you're actually being honest with yourself.
Yes.
Authenticity is huge, right? You have to actually, the first thing is you really have to be honest with yourself about everything. And so once you've acknowledged that there is fear there, the next thing is to allow yourself to, what I call, experience the fear. And this takes on many different faces, like many different experiences. And I work a lot with people who have experienced trauma. So the fear comes from our societal conditioning, even our education system. It comes from experiences, life experiences, comes from trauma, past hurts. You know all of that. Everyone knows all of that these days. And but what we need to do is to be able to face our fear. We actually have to, the way I work is I have this incredible gift, and I honestly don't know how or why. I think it's a combination of a lot of different things that have happened in my life. But when I work with people individually and in group settings, I can actually feel exactly what's going on in their body, in my body. And then source. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's
amazing.
Really, and it's such a powerful gift, because it means I can actually meet the people who come to me for help or to move through things in their lives. I can meet them where they're at. I don't guess, right? I did a life coaching course 3 or 4 years ago, thinking I needed a framework. And then I went, I can't do this. I can't do the life coaching framework because it limits me to
many
the
different
process. There's a process that you go through with life coaching, and I can't be limited by that process, because I meet the person exactly where they're at, because I can feel it and I can see it. I get given, like I've been given like videos. It's like a holographic video of, it doesn't happen with everyone. It depends on, I call it source, right? Source directs me. So that's that voice that I get.
Yeah.
I call it source. I don't really know what it is, but to me, it's the divine intelligence of existence. Okay. It's what makes everything work. It's what keeps us alive. It's what keeps our eyes blinking. We don't automatically go, I have to blink my eyes now. I have to blink my eyes now. It keeps our hearts beating. It just happens automatically. And I believe that my experience has been that there is a higher intelligence throughout existence, the universe, that keeps all of this beautiful magic happening, right? That keeps us alive. And my experience has been that if I surrender and just step myself, like my consciousness, away, source comes in and I just become a vehicle for Source to help other people.
I love that phrase you said, you surrender and then you become a vehicle to help the people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the way I see it. It's taken me many years.
Are you finally accept you have the gift now? Because everybody say you're so talented. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's still more there that I need to grow into, but to actually acknowledge that this is what I do and actually tell people this is huge for me, because it's only been the last few years that I've really allowed myself to fully embrace this this journey that is my life, you know, because it's quite extraordinary. Yeah, it's quite different and unusual. 2005. At the end of the retreat, or sometime during the retreat, the lady, the Buddha Dharma Lama, so she's like the teacher at this retreat, she said to me, Alison, I want to share this with you. We were just leaving, actually. I think we just had our last group meal and we were just about to pack our cars and go. So we were getting up from this huge dining table in the hall where we ate, where we shared our meals. And she said, I just want to share this with you. She said, when you get, I think she must have seen that I was just not conscious, right? After 10 days of not speaking, I was still not conscious. She said, when you get up out of the chair, she said, do it with purpose and consciousness. She was physically standing beside me, and she said, she sat down on the chair beside me and she showed me how to be completely present in that moment, to get up off the chair and then push the chair, be present with the chair as you push it into the table, you know, as we all do. But she did it with this consciousness, with this presence. And I'm going, oh, wow. Like, it was beautiful, because my head was off thinking, oh, you know, what am I going to do next? I've got to get in the car. I've got to go and do this. I've got to go and do, right. I wasn't present at all. Wasn't at all conscious of what I was doing. I was just doing it automatically. I was just on autopilot, right? So that was another huge turning point in my life, because I'm going, like, this lady was beautiful. There were so many magical moments. Like, back then, I had a brand new baby. I had no money. I was a solo mum. And I was deep in postnatal depression. And I had to get permission from this lady. Her name's Bonnie Ross. I had to get permission from her to attend the retreat, the 10-day silent retreat, because of my background with having postnatal depression. They gave me a really special process by which I could afford to go. I can't remember all the details. And then I get there, and she used to be a dancer. So I did Highland dancing for 30 years, and she used to be a very, very highly recognized ballet dancer from wherever it is that she's from. But the biggest thing was, her partner's name, his last name was Eades. Now, my last name is Eades, and there were very, very few Eades around, and we're just like sitting there, because once a day we'd sit for an hour and have this communication with the group. And when we realized that, you know, this, we just were like, I still can't believe that your partner's name is Eades, right? She couldn't believe that my name was Eades, because we both knew how rare this name is. So there was all these beautiful little synchronicities that had happened through this course. And like, it's silent. We weren't allowed to read. We weren't allowed to write. We weren't allowed to use pens at all. It was all silent, apart from the 1 hour a day where we sat in a circle and shared with her what was going on for us. And it was the only time we were allowed to talk, and we're only allowed to talk when she spoke to us.
Wow.
So 10 days of absolute silence.
For 1 hour only. Rest of that is so hard, especially people right now. By that time, they probably don't have like smart device, all those things you can check or distract you.
No, not the same. Yeah. And this was out in the middle of the bush, and we had these beautiful little huts that we slept in, you know, so all very separate. And it was really a time to go inward, right? But I did have this other beautiful awakening moment at the retreat, and it was when I realized, I always thought, like, I've spent most of my life literally floating on the ceiling, being out of my body, thinking that was where we were meant to be, right? And I always thought that we were human beings having a spiritual experience, and that's why we had to be out of the body doing all this mystical stuff. It's actually the other way around. And I got that realization at that retreat, that we're actually spiritual beings and that we are here to experience being in a body and being human and experience having human emotions and human feelings and human experiences.
Yeah,
because that's two huge things. So
it is a huge thing, because sometimes it's hard during the your time is hard, and then you kind of want to go out your either imagination, or you just kind of want to bring the future, or can skip that thing, so you cannot not be present anymore, right?
Which is why she was teaching me how to be present with getting up off the chair and pushing the chair in, because that was like my first step of becoming what I call present moment awareness. And at this stage, I had two small children. I had a 2.5-year-old and a brand new baby, or a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old talking.
I love it. You have so fun experience for all over the place.
Yeah, my life's like that. So I went home with these ideas of this present moment awareness, and I started practicing it day to day. Like it took ages, right? It took ages to really understand what it was that I was doing. And so if I was folding the towels, for example, I would literally consciously not do anything else but fold the towels. If I was cooking dinner, so you've got to imagine I'm a solo mom with two little children, like tiny little children, and most of my day at that stage was looking after my children, right? So everything I did, I tried to do it with this presence, with this present moment awareness. Like I tried to be 100% present with what I was doing at any given point in time.
Nice. Which is not an easy thing to do. How long take you to be like expert, or you can do like 50% or 70%?
Years.
Years. I'm guilty too, because a lot of times you say folding towel. Seriously, my mind is on other place. I think about what I need to do tomorrow, or what other thing I need to pick up, or something going around. Yeah,
that's right. So the reason I've told you this story is because it actually rolls in really beautifully to what's happened after those years and years of practice. Now, it isn't just this one thing that has created this. There's been a whole heap of other things. As I mentioned before, I had postnatal depression. Now, I had it with both of my children, but when my first child was born, he was born very unwell. And so I just thought I didn't even know it was postnatal depression. I just thought what I was feeling was because I had a sick child, right? But then my second baby was born, and after he was 6 months old, I crashed. I just hit this massive black brick wall, and I just couldn't get out of bed. And I went to my doctor, and I just said to my doctor, I can't do this. I just can't do this. I've got a 6-month-old baby, a 3-year-old child. I just can't do it anymore. And so I started getting therapy. I went to a counselor, and I actually put my 6-month-old baby, into care. He went into foster care. I voluntarily put him into foster care for 6 months because I couldn't look after him. I didn't have any family where I was living. And I had some friends who looked after him for a few weeks for me. And then he went into a Catholic foster caring system for 6 months. I thought it would be like 3 weeks. Give me 3 weeks, I'll be fine, right? But after 3 weeks, I was no better, and he became part of the foster caring system in New Zealand, not the government. Even now, it's hard to talk about it.
Definitely.
But I had no choice. Yeah. Look, it's part of my journey, and he and I, my son, and both of my children and I are now, like, it's taken many years for me to move through all of this, because this is all my own personal emotional baggage that I wasn't allowing myself to deal with that got me to that point. So it's been a journey from there to move through that to where I am now. And I have two beautiful children who I love dearly and I am present with and I'm connected with. And that's the key, right, is this presence and this connection. And some of my clients are parents, you know, they've got small children or whatever age their children are. And if there's any gift I can give anyone, it is parents to learn how to be present and connected with their children, because there aren't enough people in the world today who are completely present with their children, no matter what they're going through. I don't care what it is they're going through. Be present with them, walk beside them all the way, no matter what. And that's what I've had to learn to do. I had to get to this sort of place of desperation to be able to really dive deeply into, to stop dabbling and actually start really practicing. So I saw this beautiful counselor who was also trained, and this was the beauty of it. He was also trained in as a spiritual healer. So he had a degree or qualifications. He did 3 years of study in the spiritual world, got his qualifications, and then started practicing, and then went, to have the biggest impact, I need to go and get my mainstream counselling degree and use that in the mainstream world, because I know that's where I'll have the biggest impact. And his specialty was working with children. So I was working with him because of my children. I worked with him for 10 years. That's how long it took for me to deal with my stuff, 10 years. But the beauty of working with him was that we actually worked on an energetic level and an emotional level, not as a normal sort of speaking practice when you go and see a counsellor. It was much deeper because of his background. And I had actually been through 2 previous counsellors who didn't have that. So it was just the fact that he had this beautiful, he could see my aura, he could feel where the energy was in my body. And so we connected in a really beautiful place that enabled me to learn how to feel, because I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to be. I didn't even know that I didn't know how to feel, right? We don't know what we don't know. And one of your questions was, what's your the biggest advice is that you don't know what you don't know, right? And if I didn't know I couldn't feel. I didn't know I had squashed my feelings so hard inside of me that there weren't any.
Does it take you 10 years to get out that dark place, or during that time you actually feel much better on the
it was a step-by-step process, and I'm just slowly walking my way up the rungs of the ladder. I wasn't in a very good situation with some other people in my life, shall I say, and they kept pulling me back down. So I would climb up and then I'd be pulled back down. And so the counsellor helped me to maintain myself where I was at under a lot of very difficult, stressful periods over that time. And because of what he taught me, because he taught me how to feel, he taught me that what's that feeling? I don't know. And I'd say to him sometimes, I hate you, Shane. Because he'd say to me, Alison, what's that going on for you right now? Just go, I'm feeling around here. And I'd go, no, can't feel anything. And he'd say, well, I'm feeling that it's da-da-da-da-da. And I'd go, yeah, I don't want to get into that. He goes, yeah, let's just sit with it for a little. I hate you, Shane. Because it was hard, right? I sat on his couch so many times and bawled my eyes out so many times, bearing my soul, trying to be the best version of myself that I could be. And it's not easy.
I know.
It's not easy.
The feeling have too much mixed emotion. You have anger, you have sadness, and just mix it around. And sometimes we just say, I don't want to do that, and just kind of closing down, say, I don't want to feel all those kinds of things in this moment. And then sometimes we just take it too long and then just basically shut it off. Yeah. But I'm so glad you have that person with you to pull you out. That it's just amazing. And then you can help the people basically go through that kind of experience. Because my sister I believe she have a little bit depression after my second baby. So much of things going on with her life. A good thing how family can help it out a little bit, but she does have. I feel like she have it, and we asked her to go counseling, go see a doctor, but she refused because Asian culture, they don't usually like to talk about like spiritual or like therapists, those kind of things, because they think you might have something wrong with your head, which is I'm really hoping people are more open to this kind of thing, to find their healing, to be more present, to find their guide to get out of that situation.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, it's really important. No,
Yeah.
I agree with you. And I think my son, my youngest, is 18 now. So this was 18 years ago. And like things like domestic violence wasn't discussed back then. You know, it's so much more an okay thing to talk about. Postnatal depression wasn't discussed. You know, having difficulties breastfeeding wasn't discussed. I had a nurse, a breastfeeding consultant nurse, yelling at me because I couldn't feed my sick baby.
What?
You know, 20 years ago. And, you know, things have changed a lot over the last 20 years, which is really beautiful. And I know there's a lot of difficult things going on in the world at the moment, but I do truly believe that those things are all part of human beings as a collective consciousness waking up. Yeah, these things have got to come out. Just like you're saying with your sister, we as individuals, we have to wake up.
Yes.
And I couldn't keep living the way that I was living. It was killing me, literally. You know, it was so painful, so painful. I didn't know how to feel, to the point where I had this beautiful 18-month-old boy, and he, you know, you go and lay down beside your kids when they go to sleep. I couldn't stand laying beside him for more than 10 minutes because of the divine love that he still held in his spirit, in his being. And I didn't know how to feel love. And it was physically painful in my body to lay beside my child.
That's very hard. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I had to learn how to navigate my way from that sort of place, that where feelings were so painful, to be with them, to actually allow myself to be what I now see as a place of peace. And I have been very dedicated to this path of personal practice. Yeah. And everyone, as I said right back at the beginning, everyone's practice is different. There is no two ways. Everyone's path is so unique to them. And so I was so dedicated to this practice that in 2020, I had a very, very beautiful close friend of mine pass away. And we'd been friends. Yeah, I still feel sad about it, but you know, it's part of life that we lose people who are very close to us. But after he passed, and I do tell this story a lot because it's such a another turning point in my life. After he passed, I saw his presence, or his essence, sort of in the side of the room. I'd just woken up, I think, at the time. I was in my bed and I'd just woken up, and I just felt his presence in the room. And there was like this veil, like a curtain running this way. And it was like he was moved from the plane of earthly suffering, right, which is where we live, through this veil. And I could see it changing as he moved through the veil to this place of complete serenity and peace. But the magic was, I went with him.
Oh, your spirit is trying to go with it. Oh, you take me with you.
He took me with him to this place of peace.
Wow.
And I'm it was almost like I could see, like as this moved across, this part of my brain sort of closed down, where, you know, the part of the brain that creates the suffering. I don't even know how it works. I don't have any words for it. I can only explain the experience, and that was exactly what happened. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, well, that's weird, because I was just in this peace, like the duality disappeared, that whole second guessing. The presence was there, like there was no, it was so quiet because there wasn't any wondering what I need to do next, or I should be thinking about this. That all disappeared in that moment. It just all disappeared. And so it's not always there. I do sometimes, like if something happens, depending on what it is, I sometimes get shifted out of that place. Well, because what happens is I get triggered still very mildly compared to how it used to be. But if I get triggered, I will still potentially sometimes step into a place of sadness and grief, which is deeper than normal, that I still need to just sit in. But the peace always comes back, always comes. And it doesn't take 6 months or 12 months. It usually takes between a few minutes to a few hours to sometimes a few days.
How do you get it back?
I have no control over it.
Somehow they just come back. That's the most important part.
Yeah. And that's why I call it a gift, because it's not something that I don't believe any of us have any control over this. I really don't believe. It's just something that happens. It is gifted to you. Right. So, but the thing is, to be able to receive this gift is you have to be in a state of allowing yourself to receive it.
Allowing yourself. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes. Yeah, I'll explain it to you. So you know how I was talking to you before about the fact that I'm an Aries and I'm really stubborn and I know best, right? You've got to step out of that.
Okay.
You have to step out of this mental idea, this mentality that you're in control, right? And that you can make everything happen just by yourself, because nothing happens that way. Even if you want to be a successful business person, you can do anything you want to become a successful business person, but it's only going to be the people that you work with and your clients that actually make you successful, right? We do not stand alone. The only thing we are in control of is how we react and respond to things that happen in our lives. So for you to actually receive this gift, now some people, I guess, do get a bit of a rude awakening and it happens to them, but I truly believe that somewhere along the line they have to ask for it. They might have said, oh my God, let's just stop this nonsense. I don't want this nonsense anymore. So that's actually asking for help. They may not recognize that, but they've asked for help, right? And so in 10 years' time, after they've said that, they might have this gift given to them because they're ready for it. Because you've got to be ready for it as well, because the energy associated with this gift of peace is so high that your physical body needs to be able to allow it to flow through. Does that make sense?
And that makes sense. I try to imagine how I can get.
Let's just backpedal a little bit. So back in the day when I was, let's say I had postnatal depression, okay, and I was learning that I didn't know how to feel. So what I was doing at that time, without knowing it, this is all unconscious behavior, which most of us have experienced and do in our lives at some stage. So there was all this unconscious behavior going on because what was happening was I was resisting. I wasn't allowing myself to feel. I was resisting what was going on in my life. I'd been taught from an early age not to allow myself to feel what I was feeling because being angry isn't good. Being sad, you don't cry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, So over the years, we're told to just not feel things. So we push them down to the point where some of us just don't feel anymore. We all react in different ways, right? So you've got the fight, flight, freeze idea that people talk about now. So I was the sort of person that literally froze. I just kept, some people fight. Yeah. And then
anger.
Yeah. And I've that's exactly right. And I've been guilty of that as well, because you stop, a bit of passive aggressive because you don't allow yourself to react. You don't react. And then all of a sudden you're a pressure cooker and it's got to come out somewhere. Right. So this is the sort of thing, the sort of presence that we're coming from in our lives where we are not allowing ourselves from being who we are. We're not allowing ourselves to feel. We're taught that we're not pretty enough, we're not good enough, we're not tall enough, we're too big, we're too small, whatever, right? And so we come with a history within our lives of not allowing ourselves to be who we really are, right? We lose that connection to ourselves. So the journey for me, and I can only speak for my journey, right? I mean, I have clients and I can talk about their journey, but I can't because it's breaching client confidentiality. But also, it's not my experience, right? I'm observing their journey, but my journey is my journey. It's what I've seen. It's what I've experienced. So it's the most authentic place for me to speak from, right? This is how my life is. So for me, it's been a very step by step, tiny steps by tiny steps by tiny steps journey of learning my feelings. And every tiny little feeling that I've learned, I've opened up a little bit, and then I've opened up a little bit more, and then I've opened up a little bit more. So the more I allow myself to feel, the more energy can flow in my body. Because if we're closed off and we're not allowing ourselves to be who we are and we're not allowing ourselves to feel, we're actually stopping that energy. You can't have both.
Yes.
You either have one or the other, right? So once you sort of create a little crack, then the energy can start flowing and then you can keep exploring. And I've seen it more of an exploration. I've not known what I was doing. I'm just going, got to do this. Okay, got to do that.
Whatever felt good, and you just keep trying it, right?
Yeah, that's right. And you work out what doesn't work, because what doesn't work keeps you in that place of pain, right? So little bit by little bit, I've allowed myself to feel and to understand what my feelings were. And as I've done that, I've literally opened up the channel. So I believe we're all born as babies. Most of us, some babies do experience trauma in the womb, but I believe most babies are born with this beautiful flow of the energy that is our birthright, right? There's this beautiful flow. Look at the babies. You see their little innocent eyes. You know, they laugh, they trust. They're just
everyone just loves babies.
Pure.
They have just a pure energy coming out.
Yes. Yeah, because they're so pure. But what happens with most people as we go through life, through to family conditioning, society conditioning, educational conditioning, work conditioning, that beautiful flow gets restricted, right? And what I see with that restriction of flow is it's like a dimmer switch.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Because when we turn a dimmer switch down, we have a light and the light's shining brightly. And as we turn the resistance up, the light gets
the darker, smaller. Yes.
So it's the resistance that's important, right? Because as we slowly work our way through life, the resistance gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we slowly stop being who we are because we're resisting our day-to-day experiences in our lives, especially if we've been abused or had trauma, family relationship breakdowns, family breakdowns, things like that. So when I talk about allowing yourself to receive this gift of peace, you have to my experience has been that I have had to move into this level of consciousness of saying, I am happy. I allow myself to receive this gift, right? And I'm sure you use it in your coaching, in your mindset practice, because you can walk around all day going, I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of love, right? And we do that unconsciously.
Yes.
So what I'm asking people to say is, instead of saying I am not worthy of love, if you're looking for a relationship or even just friends, you say to yourself, I allow myself to receive love.
Yes.
And you can even take that one step further and say, I allow myself to receive love from myself, for myself.
Yeah, I love that, because we need a reminder to ourselves too.
Yes. And my experience has been that everything starts here. Everything starts with you. And it's like you're saying at the beginning, some of us, and I'm guilty of this back in the day, having the mentality of blaming other people for the way that I feel, Once we can take ownership for our reaction to the outside world, then we can start exploring our inner world. And it's the inner world that we can create to be beautiful and loving and caring and compassionate. which then we can extend into the outside world, which then creates the miracles and the manifestations. Yeah.
Yes.
And, we're supposed to be talking about manifesting.
Yes.
But my experience has been that we have to manifest ourselves first. So if you're coming from a place of restriction, pain, blame, then the first thing you've got to do is work on yourself and start manifesting the way in life that is what you're looking for, like internally.
Because I always felt like people manifest something because it's not there yet. It's like future something, like maybe the successful business. During that time, their vibration is different than the current vibration. So they are not getting there, yes. And we are stuck into the vibration right now, and we don't get teach about vibration, how you're emotionally feel. So they kind of hard to reach out to that spot. So
yes.
You can.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's right. And I just want to join a couple of dots, and I want to do it logically. So that's why I'm just pausing for the moment. Is that okay? I've got it. I just had to, because when you were talking, all the stuff was coming through, and I just needed to go back to there. What actually happens is, and this is what I teach people just in their day-to-day lives, right? Is when you're trying to reach something that's outside of yourself, you're no longer present.
Yes.
So the trick is to stay present, stay in the present moment, and bring that, whatever it is that you're looking for in the future, bring that into the present moment.
So, like, if you want to manifest something, you basically need to act like you already have it, or that kind of. That's what I usually do. Like,
Yes.
if I want something, I'm how would I say, a career. I'm just basically or job. I will just act in, yes, I have a 9 to 5 job. I will wake up exactly the time and pretending in my mind or something. I already interact with the people, my coworkers, those kind of things. What do you would add in something added with that?
Yes, I think that's exactly right, Ruby. But the thing is, though, that you've also got to look at what's stopping you from being that person right now as well. So I always, do you know what I mean? Like, because when you go, like I'm wanting to create an online course, right? And I haven't done this before. I mean, I run courses, but I haven't done anything online. And so I'm like, oh gosh, what mics do I need, right? I want to get some really good mics that are going to be able, because I have my beautiful bowl here. Ooh. So I play, this might not work. I'll just try. It doesn't always come because I've only got this mic because I haven't bought my mics yet. But this is my bowl. Wow. And I play this and I sing and chant and speak light language when I work with people and do courses. And so I want to make sure that when I start recording my course, it's, it's the quality that needs to be appropriate. Yes. And so I keep, like, this has been in my consciousness for about 4 or 5 years to create these courses. And even just, I do retreats now. So I'm just about to book my 3rd retreat for December. But a year and a half ago when I started doing retreats, all the things that were stopping me within my consciousness from actually being a retreat for, you've got to be able to navigate your way through those obstacles to keep going and just keep trusting that you can get to where it is that you want to be. I get people to start small, and this might sound funny, but I have a running booking system with the universe or existence or God or source or whatever you want to call that thing, for car parks. Now, you've probably heard about the car park thing, right?
But no.
Okay. So I have a running request in with Mr. God, I'll say, because that's usually how I talk about the car parks. I go, okay, Mr. God, I want a car park right outside of this store when I drive down that street, right? So usually I'll leave home, and if I know there's a place where parking's not great, I will put the order in for the car park as I'm leaving home. right?
Yes.
And it's to the point now where I don't even have to ask. It's just automatic. So I'll give you an example. I was driving this lady around over a period of a couple of years. She didn't drive, so I would drive her. And her partner needed to go to this particular store on the main street in the town where we lived, right? And the main street, there were never any car parks. And 3 times I took her to this place to meet her partner in this store. And 3 times I got the car park right out front, out the front of the store. And he said to me, how do you do that? Yeah. He said, how do you do that? I've got to park all the way over there or more. I go, I've just got my order in with God.
I love it.
And funnily enough, 2 doors down from that is my favourite Thai restaurant. And every single time I want to go and get my Thai takeaway, not that I do it anymore, and I've actually moved from that place, I've moved up the coast, but every time I want Thai, there's always a car park in front of the Thai restaurant in this busy as place that there's never any car parks. People go up and down, up and down, up and down this big long street to get a car park. There's always a car park or a car pulling out so I can pull in behind them.
Yes.
Every time without fail. So start small with car parks, because what that does is it starts to build your belief, right?
Yeah.
And trust and belief and faith all go hand in hand with this requesting for gifts to be given to you from the universe, right? And I might be speaking in a slightly different language than some of your listeners and your clients, your client base, your audience. But it's the same, right? I'm just using different words.
Yeah.
So you can put an order in. You can put the order in however you want for a car park in your town. Start practicing with car parks because it works.
I love it.
And then once you build up that trust and you start believing that you can actually ask for something and then it manifests, oh my gosh, right? Then you can start getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes.
The company that I did the coaching with, I've been charging for my services as an energy healer for many years, right? I've been doing this for 20 years, but it's only been in the last 3 or 4 years that I've started to do group work. And I've put my prices up for my one-on-ones and things like that, because so I've been charging for a long time, but then I did this life coaching course with a reputable company here in Australia, and it was a great course, and I think it's wonderful, but it just wasn't completely what I was looking for. I just didn't know at the time. Part of it was, he said, start with charging people what you feel comfortable with. If you only feel comfortable charging someone $20 an hour, charge them $20 an hour, because you're not going to manifest someone paying $300 an hour if you're not comfortable receiving that money, right?
Yes, definitely.
So which sort of goes back to when I was saying about receiving the gift of peace. You have to be comfortable allowing yourself to receive this gift of peace. If you don't believe that you are worthy of living a peaceful life, then you're immediately putting a roadblock to it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So yeah, start small and work up from there. And to the point where I run retreats, they're like nearly $3,000 per person, and I don't even have to advertise them. They're always fully booked. It's crazy. I'm just about to start. Yeah. I'm just about to start putting out the information for my next retreat, and here on the Sunshine Coast, and I've already got a list of people to approach who have shown interest, and it just happens. Like, it just happens. It's quite magical.
People just draw in with your energy. Do you mind I ask how big the retreat is? How many people can be on?
We keep them really small. We usually only have between 6 and 8 guests.
Oh,
and
that's
there's
nice.
5, with 5 support people.
So more intimate, you get more support in that way. That's
yes,
good, though.
because they're quite, the retreats are very transformational, and so we need to be able to manage the transformations that any of the people can be going through at any given point in time. So we do a circle through the retreat, like we all sit in circle, and there's myself and 3 other people who sit within the circle, and we will work with whatever comes up for anyone. And sometimes it can be quite deep releasing of held energy and held emotions. And then we have our nourisher who obviously looks after us for our food, but she's also extremely gifted in her work as well. So she will, when she has time, come and assist us as well in our transformations. So
Nice.
yeah. And hey, I never knew I was going to be doing this. It's all, I look back and go, whoa, how did this all happen?
That is so cool. I wish one day I have a chance to join your retreat. I want to be mindful about your time because we've been talking about more than an hour. It's so fun because you've been more than an hour actually, because you share so much. I felt like you have so many things to share. It's just really amazing. I definitely want to reach out back to you and then get a chance to talk to you more about it. So before we end it, what do you want to share with anything to our audience?
I would just like to say that just don't give up. You know, if I can get to where I'm at in my life, hey, it's not always easy, but please don't give up. Just keep betting on yourself and try and find that beautiful, authentic you, which is inside here. It is inside everyone, no matter what's gone on in your life. There's that beautiful divine essence that is who you are is always there. It's never not there.
You're coming back.
You just have to reconnect with it again. That's all it is. It's just get rid of all those outside layers of the nonsense so you can get back in touch and reconnecting with your divine, beautiful, divine spark, they call it, in the Vedic religion or the Vedic scriptures, the teachings. And it's there. Like, it's what I work with. I work through everyone's heart connection. That's all the work that I do is all about the heart. And as human beings, it's time for us to come out of our heads and into our hearts and actually live our lives from our hearts. That's the way forward, in my humble opinion.
I love it. It's the first step though. Start overthinking. Coming just back, follow your heart. And where people can find you.
Where can they find me? Well, as I said at the beginning, I'm in Brisbane in Australia. I do online work. I'm in the process of setting up an online membership, so that's not available yet. But I do have a website. It's www.alisoneeades.com. Facebook is Alison Dawn Eades. That's my personal profile, and my business profile is The Divine Connection with an X.
Okay, I'll add it to the show note. Yes, so they can reach out much easily. I'm interested too.
Oh, look, it's just so, I love the work that I do. It doesn't feel like work at all, and it's just so beautiful, and I feel so honored and humbled when people reach out to so that I can walk beside them in their journey and help them find peace and happiness as well. I think it's so beautiful when people can actually move through their stuff and actually find this beautiful place of peace.
Thank you so much again for your time. I love your story.
Lovely to meet you.
You have a good one.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope the story and insight that have left you inspired and motivated to take your own steps toward transformation, healing, and manifest your dream. You can receive our manifestation workshop for free. All you have to do is take a screenshot of your review before you submit it, or the comment you put it on the YouTube, and just email us at hi@whatasimpleLife.com. It's a fantastic opportunity to dive deeper into the art of manifestation and unlock your full potential. Your feedback and review are incredibly valuable to us. By sharing your insight and thought, you are helping us create even more meaningful content for our community. So whether you are in Spotify, YouTube, or any other platform, don't forget to leave us a comment or write a review. It's your way to spreading positivity and helping others to discover the path to their own wellness. We will be back with with more incredible story and insight in the next episode. Until then, remember that your journey and wellness is just beginning. Take a screenshot of your review or comment and send it to us. hi@whatasimplelife.com to receive a 3-day manifestation workshop for free. Thanks for tuning in, and we can't wait to see you on the next episode of Mind Your Abundance.